Master, am I correct in guessing that you're on your way to the spell labs? My master is diligent as always. If I may make a recommendation, why don't you step into my pocket dimension? I've prepared a warded space that should allow us to experiment freely without risk of collateral damage or attracting too much attention. It also features a fully furnished country estate, complete with green space and simulated day-night cycle. I was stuck counting the pits in the walls of a ceramic jar for 500 years. Of course I'm going to make sure that my living space has sunlight to bask in. Or at least simulated sunlight. No need to apologize, Master. I was the one who recommended keeping my presence hidden as long as possible. It'd be best to get a chance to make a few friends before people become aware that you have an ancient snake demon bound to your service. The first year of post-secondary schooling is a great time to seek out new connections amongst your classmates. Mages that have made it this far are likely to earn their full robes. Besides, human structures aren't exactly constructed with creatures of my size in mind. Better to make it a mansion with high ceilings and wide doors in my own little pocket dimension than to try and cram this much tail into your dormitory. I'll give you a tour later, Master. For now, let's just head over to the lab. My taste in decor might be about 5 centuries out of date, but I'm guessing that just adds to my charm. I'm glad you recognize the lamps, Master. Many people would put off simply by the words luminous ooze, but I think they're highly underrated as a lighting solution. They require feeding and cleaning every so often, but their spores can be found practically everywhere, and they produce that lovely amber glow for the cost of a few table scraps and dust bunnies every 3 weeks. If you want to practice transfiguration, please feel free to experiment with redecorating this place. It's a great way to train the sort of mental flexibility required to execute spells while still holding a mental image of what you want in your mind's eye. I will humbly request, Master, that you leave the floors as they are, at least for a while. I may have gone a little overboard with the hardwood, but the feeling of this specific wood type under my feet is something I've dearly missed since the tree's extinction. If you must replace it, please do so with other hardwoods or carpeting. One of my previous masters made her lair entirely of black marble, not considering how little traction a snake's tail gets on polished stone, or how miserable it is to feel the goddamned floor drain every last morsel of heat from your cold-blooded body as you slither helplessly, praying to the gods above and below that you'll make it to the fireplace before passing out. Oh no, when I politely requested that she put at least some rugs out for traction and little insulation, she said, "Ha ha ha, wouldn't compromise her aesthetic vision for the slaves that crawled like worms." Well, what was reported to the king was that she was poisoned by a rival sorceress, and the slave she sent to fetch the antidote couldn't reach her in time. What the report didn't say is that the slave carrying the antidote passed out on the marble floor mere feet from her throne. The last thing I saw before fully blacking out was her, crawling like a worm, trying to lick the antidote off her precious black marble floor. That isn't to say I'm wholly opposed to stone or tile, just make sure it has texture to it. and is heated to some degree. Now that I think of it, a warm stone floor could be quite pleasant. Pardon? Oh, my former mistress had indeed done many other things to earn her ironic death. The marble floors were but a pebble in a massive stone wall of grievances she constructed between herself and many others. My intent was not to threaten, Master, merely to again demonstrate why I so value what you call the common courtesy you've extended to me. I also think that young wizards can never hear enough tales of hubris. In any case, we've arrived at the labs. I've done my best to prepare the labs in such a way that will be able to contain any magical whoopsies you are likely to produce before you're a fully robed wizard. There are both manual and automatic fire suppression systems. All of the walls are warded against teleportation. There are 4 different fully stocked aid stations with various remedies in clearly labelled containers and a generous selection of protective gear to choose from. Ah yes, there's also a bed, as my master has helpfully pointed out. No offence meant, master, but you seem distracted. Is there anything you need help taking care of before we begin spellcrafting? Dreaming of a new spell requires you to be both creative and fully focused on the task at hand. There are far too many risks to work on this kind of task if you can't give it your full attention. Perhaps I should say this a different way. I know you aren't used to being around beings with enhanced sensory capabilities, but by now you should know that creatures like me can tell how you're feeling just from the messages your body is broadcasting through hormones. Simply put, Master, I can smell the loneliness on you. When combined with the way you keep reaching for my tail and flinching away, I can only conclude that you could really use some physical affection. If you wish for physical contact, Master, you merely need to ask. How many times must I remind you, Master, that the contract you wrote only gives you control over my magical abilities? My words come from a tongue unbound by our contract. You can't even stop me from calling you Master, even though it makes you turn as red as my eyes every time I say it. Burnt scales, Master. Even if I literally couldn't say no, I know familiar contract law better than anyone else at this college. I know enough loopholes to be more than capable of defending myself when bound by contracts that forbid me from raising a finger against my master, which ours decidedly does not. This is even sillier if you take our physical forms into account. As I am sure you know from your extensive research, we naga start big and keep growing. A maiden just entering adulthood would outweigh you by a factor of 2. And I am centuries past maidenhood. I'm being so insistent about this because I want you to trust me, and more importantly, trust yourself. Success in magic isn't only determined by one's mana reserves. It takes a special kind of madness to be able to imagine the unfathomable and will it into being. I've seen the fires of madness burning in the eyes of the greatest mages, just as I see the fires of madness burning in yours. That mad spark alone would have interested me enough to become your familiar, for entertainment's sake if nothing else. Watching a mortal be consumed by the flames of their own hubris will never get old no matter how many times you see it. What makes me want to be your partner is the other thing I see in your eyes. A kindness and carefulness. If nurtured correctly, I believe that those traits will allow you to become a truly great wizard. Your professor said that wizards are those bold enough to simply remake the world as they will. He is somewhat correct, but I would say he's putting the wrong words into the heads of young mages. A barber who doesn't care about his customers is quite likely to slash his customer's neck. A barber who is so afraid of hurting the customer with a sharp razor that his hand trembles is also very likely to spill blood. A close shave requires a barber who cares for his customer, but also respects the sharpness of his razor and wields it with a steady hand. You were so mad to try and seek me out in the first place, only having half-forgotten legends and vague descriptions to go off of. You were mad to even consider asking a 30-foot-long snake demon to be your familiar. Maddest of all, you were willing to risk everything to make me a partner rather than a slave. You knew full well that a demon without shackles is a demon that does what it wants. Any sane wizard would have collared me with their contract and used me as their trained animal. You dared to ask me to shackle myself with friendship. If I could be trusted to play nice because it's what my friend and partner wanted of me. Of course I didn't trust you at first. The only real caveat to the freedom you offered me was that you could choose to end your existence to return me to my cage if you thought I was danger. To test you, I offered you power after power, and you turned them all down in favor of a soul shredder imprisonment contract. Ever since I accepted, you've been true to your word. I've been around for a very long time, but I can say with confidence that I've never had a better master or a better friend. I want you to trust yourself on the issue of cuddles, because I want you to trust yourself on the issue of power. I badly want to help you reach your potential, but if I can't help you find your confidence, I risk creating a powerful tool for a tyrant to dominate. You may not want fame, but powerful mages aren't allowed the luxury of a peaceful obscurity. I know you, Master. You're far too curious to hold yourself back from creating something new and exciting, just to keep from sticking out. Like it or not, Master, your anonymity ends in 2 weeks. I must admit, Master, some of this comes from a selfish desire to assuage my own guilt. Ever since you became my master, I've been pushing you to fulfill the potential I see in you because I'm so incredibly excited to see what you'll create. I do this despite knowing the hardship being a powerful wizard will place on my master. If Master is going through all this additional stress, at least in part on my behalf, I want to help Master relieve it. As a final tidbit, do you have any idea how touched out a creature whose half-constricted snake gets after 500 years of isolation? After the respect you've shown me, I might be able to resist pouncing you. But I'd really appreciate if you could get over your bashfulness sooner rather than later. Building your confidence here would also help assuage my worries of you falling prey to pretty things that bat their eyelashes at you, only after they learn you're on track to be the next great wizard. Okay, how's this? If you're still worried about my ability to consent due to the familiar contract, and are nervous about touching me in general, how about I walk you through this a little?